Hi, I'm Jim Lyles, and some people call me the timeline guy. Okay. And I want to tell you that I'm sure thrilled more than any of you here to be here tonight. My book was published. This is the book. It is a monster. Okay. These are my business cards. They're also little like bookmarks. Hopefully you'll take a bunch of them home with you. If you go, the website, my phone number, everything's on here. If you go to the address on here, if you go there, there's a thing there that gives you a 20% discount when you go to this webpage on the book. Okay, just to let you know that. And here's my plan tonight. There's obviously a lot of stuff that could be covered. I'm going to go to the really, really basics tonight. Hopefully when you leave here, you will understand some new information about the Bible. Now let me explain what I mean by that. You've got all these dates on here, exact dates, and he says, I'm immediately skeptical. Well, you should be, because when you look at Bible chronology today, you have lots of different theories about the dates and when they happen. But even organizations that believe in the inerrancy of Scripture, they all have articles that say, we believe in the inerrancy of Scripture, but we can't be exact about the dates. Every organization will have such an article, okay? They all say, we believe it, but we just, there isn't sufficient evidence in Scripture to give us an exact date. So we all walk around with that. What this research shows is that the numbered years in Scripture are as inerrant as the rest of the text. If I go from creation in 4115 to 30 AD, which is the year of the crucifixion on Passover of Jesus, what this research shows is that if I use a 364-day calendar, which ancient pseudepigraphers say the Hebrew calendar is a 364-day calendar, but you can't find what it looks like, okay? It has to be derived from Scripture. If that calendar is accurate and it's derived from Scripture, and if we start up here, you'll see a date of 1445 BC. Every date you see in black on your poster is a date on a 364-day calendar. The date in red is the identical event, but on the calendar that's hanging in your kitchen or your computer, on the Gregorian calendar, with a corresponding Jewish date. And we'll get to how I got that. But so what I'm saying is, the dates in Scripture are as inerrant as the rest of the text. There are no errors, there's no missing gaps, there's no missing times, any of that. So a lot of what you're going to hear tonight is different than everything you've been taught. So that's important. It's not different because nobody else could add, and I'm the first guy that could add. That's not the reason, okay? It has nothing to do with me. I could not have done, and by the way, to get to all this took 9.5 years. It wasn't something I figured out in a few weeks, and there were stages to it. My point is, and so I hope I don't ever sound, when I say something and I say it's different, don't take that as I'm criticizing anybody. I'm not criticizing anybody. Okay? Everyone did the best they could with the information we had. But it's really been only in the past maybe 8 years that we could definitely put on a calendar converter on the internet an accurate dating system of all of the calendars, because every day on the calendar has what's called a Julian day number. And from that Julian day number, and starting with the Julian calendar, and now we have the Gregorian calendar, from those dates, every other calendar used on Earth can be compiled. So, the problem is, if we can find out what the calendar of the Old Testament is, and we know that the calendar of the New Testament is now a solar calendar because the Julian calendar was created in 46 BC. So the Old Testament doesn't have a solar calendar, the New Testament does. So if we can figure out what that calendar is and line it up with a known date, and I'm saying the known date we're going to use is the date of the crucifixion. We know exactly from scientific evidence, and we know from Scripture exactly what day that is. We know from Scripture that it's Nisan 14. The term Passover refers to 2 days. It refers to Nisan 14, and it refers to Nisan 15. The thing that distinguishes them is that Nisan 14 is referred to as preparation. Often it's translated preparation day. The word day isn't there, it's the preparation, meaning it's the end of the preparation. And when the Jews were going to leave Egypt on the night of the 14th, which is the 15th, because their days start 6 hours before. My point is they were to be prepared to leave. So the preparation, the last day of preparation is the 14th. The next day is the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the 15th. And that's Saturday in the year 30 AD. We take the Julian day number, assign it to them, and we go back through history. We will land on all these dates that you see here. In the same way, if I start over here at creation, and I go back this way, I'm going to land on the same dates because they're very precise. Math doesn't lie. Okay? So, does that give you kind of just a brief overview? Okay. So, it's going to make more sense as I talk. And so, what I want to do, I'm going to start by telling you, first of all, what the calendar, according to my research, I'll specify it that way. According to my research, let me tell you what the calendar of the Old Testament is not. That's very important. Okay. How many have ever heard that the calendar of the Old Testament is and I don't mean this as a criticism, is a 360-day calendar with 12 months of 30 days each? There are a zillion books that's the foundation. Okay? Here's the problem with that. And I have a whole chapter in my book. It's called The Myth of the 360-Day Year. Here's the problem with that. The modern Hebrew calendar, and it's true in the Old Testament when we get to the Kings, is a lunar calendar. The modern day calendar is both solar and lunar. The lunar part controls the months, and it starts with the new moon. At the time of the Exodus, when you get to the Kings, it'll say the new moon starts and the trumpet will sound at the new moon. But in Exodus, that's not true. In Exodus, it says the trumpet will sound on the first day of the month. The moon is not mentioned. That's showing you there's a progression. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out what that calendar is, and then use dates in Scripture. And we'll see, we're going to put an anchor date on 30 AD as the year of the crucifixion. We're going to put 1445, remember on the 364-day calendar, is the year of the start of the Exodus. And I got that from the MacArthur Study Bible, and there's a lot of other books that say that's the accurate date. What a lot of people don't tell you, and you'll see this a lot, for example, birth of Abraham. You'll see a lot, when I first started this, everyone had 2165. Okay, when I first put my, now everyone's got 2166. What they don't tell you is 2166 on a 364-day calendar. They don't mention that because they don't know that. That same date is 8 years later, 2158 on our Gregorian calendar, because they're not the same. It's not a 360-day calendar because on the Hebrew calendar, the 4 months of Tevet, Iyar, Elul, and Tammuz always have 29 days. There's no exceptions to that. And even though today, the current secular Hebrew calendar used today wasn't started until Julius Caesar said, I want a solar calendar. It wasn't completed till probably the 3rd or 4th century, but it did not exist in the Old Testament. There was no lunar solar calendar anywhere. In fact, there was no solar calendar anywhere in the world before Julius Caesar says, I want to know when to plant the crops. I don't want stargazers looking at the stars to tell us when to plant the crops. Make sense? Okay. Now, how do we know that there's no solar? So many people write books. They'll say, well, it's a Julian calendar. It's a 360-day calendar. They'll say it's the Hebrew calendar we now use. None of that fits the text. Where did I get the idea of a 364-day calendar? First of all, that's what ancient Hebrew pseudepigraphs say. The book of Jubilees and the book of Enoch both talk about a 364-day calendar. But they don't show you what it looks like. Okay. They just say that's the calendar we use. And what a 364-day calendar does is it generates, it's like it spins off the dates of the year on a solar calendar. For example, January 1 on the 364-day calendar is Tevet 9. In a normal year, a 365, Tevet 9 repeats itself in January and December. So it's this 364-day calendar. It just adds one day, the same day. In a leap year, Tevet 9 and 10, Tevet 10 and 11 are the same. So you have 2 days repeating. That's on a solar calendar. So what I'm saying is, this 364-day calendar spits out the Gregorian calendar we use today. I'll give you one example. We know that Jesus is crucified on Nisan 14, Passover. We know from NASA moon charts, okay, this is very important. On a Gregorian calendar, Friday, March 22nd, there was a new moon late in the day. In other words, after 5 p.m. That means that means 2 weeks from that day, March 22nd, is going to be April 5th. If you look up a calendar converter, you will see that April 5th falls on a Friday. What my research shows is that in a normal year, April 5th is always Nisan 14 on the Gregorian calendar. Isn't that interesting? So even though people are using all different calendars, what I'm saying, in the year 30 AD, all the Jewish calendars, every other calendar used on the planet lines up perfectly on that day, and it matches Nisan 14, which is the day in Scripture. Does that make sense? Okay. So that same day, let's go over here. That same day, Nisan 14, April 5th, is also Friday, May 2nd, Iyar 15 on the 364-day calendar. So if I line those 2 days up, put my calendars neck to neck and go back, I will land on every one of those dates. And you'll notice every date in black is the same day of the week as the date in red. Okay? All of the red dates come from science, only we've added the solar version of the 364-day calendar to do this.